there were a lot of tall black monsters. Pock whispered to me not to let the eyes of the Vi see me.
Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of the Let's Dream Podcast. This is Dream Stories episode 35. I'm your host Casey and we have our other host
Lee. How's it going, everyone?
Today we will be going over some more dream stories. Okay, so you guys have definitely been getting a lot more detailed and intricate with the stories. So thank you for that. It looks like, Lee, I think people have been practicing their dream journaling, it looks like.
I'm gonna try to keep dialing that in every episode. I'm gonna make them annoyed that I keep doing it.
Nice. Good. Yeah, I mean, no, it's like a lot of people actually, well, I wouldn't say, a couple of people have said that the dream journaling definitely has helped increase the vividness and the recall of their dreams. So it's definitely something good to practice.
Yeah, and telling us your dream stories like help your own benefit to that as well.
Yeah, so there's something about like, you know, if you think of something, you might remember it. If you write it down, you will probably remember it. And then if you, on top of that, if you say it to somebody else, then you are very likely to remember it because it kind of reinforces that, what is it called? Neural network.
Yeah,
so it's
and you're building this awareness.
Right, exactly. But yeah, let's get right into it. Some of the great dream stories. So Lee will start us off here. What do you got, Lee?
So the first dream story is from user Shmahan. So the dream goes, me and some other person were running away from this creature through a forest path. The creature was in the background where a massive carnival flare was. The sky was dark, algae green. The creature didn't even really notice us, but we were scared, desperate. And there was an atmosphere of doom. There was this feeling that something went horribly wrong. The creature was a colossal worm, bigger than a skyscraper. Its body was segmented, kind of like that one stone Pokemon that Brock had, that giant stone snake. Its face was this insane carnival-themed abomination. It had the same vibe as the Cuphead moon boss, but more rounded. The whole worm was painted in carnival-themed colors. It shot out of the ground and flew through the air extremely high. Then it turned back down and smashed into the ground, making a massive hole. It tunneled through the ground, disappearing completely, only to smash through the ground again and again, making craters. That's the end of the dream.
Cool. Yeah, so I made another sketch of this one. I really like that one. I like that it combined like two kind of like pop culture references, like Pokemon and Cuphead. I like how, you know, you see things in real life and then they kind of like distort, or your brain just kind of like remixes them in dreams.
Yeah, and there was like the carnival theme colors as well, which is very strange. It's like this thing was having a circus and it didn't really care about like what was in its environment and just like did its thing and started making holes.
You know, I wonder if, like, I can't think of a carnival and not think of something creepy, you know? Like, even though carnivals are supposed to be, like, happy and entertaining places, there's always, like, yeah, I don't know. It's, like, just modern horror films that really ruin that for everyone.
I've never been to, like, a circus or a carnival, so...
Okay, well, I mean, I don't think you're missing out much. But, yeah, no, they're definitely, in my mind, very creepy.
Yeah, I can see that.
Okay, let's see. So the next dream is from user Urkelgrew. I always love reading the different usernames. I was walking in my grandma's subdivision, which is in a completely different state from where I live, and there was this short mountain with stairs on it. I don't remember going up the stairs, but I must have because I'm soon found at the top. At the top there was this kind of boardwalk type place. I was suddenly joined by another person. They were pretty ambiguous, and I don't remember exact details about them other than 1, their skin was kind of tan but ashy. 2, their hair was kind of spiky. And 3, they were about my height. We walked up the second flight of stairs and walked against a crowd of people ordering things from various stores. Several of them were tourists. Somebody was playing like a traditional Japanese music somewhere. Think shamisen, kotos, taikos, etc. Reminded me of some of the music from Spirited Away. We walked past Paddy's, which was an Irish pub/restaurant, and a big, sort of muscular, presumably Irish man with light brown hair came out and said something in a stereotypical sounding accent along the lines of, "Hoi, hoi, hoi, welcome to Paddy's." We looked at him and politely said, "Maybe when we get back, thank you." He somehow materialized a hat on top of his head and tipped it and went back inside. We got a train ticket from the ticket booth and went to the train station by taking that wooden path on the right. We eventually reached a train station which housed a futuristic bullet train. We got on, and that's when the second part of the dream started. The whole dream then became an episode of Sesame Street. It was one of those little kids, big challenges type special episodes. And it was about how to cope with the loss of something. A man with a gentle Mexican accent drawn in Maya and Miguel's art style came on the screen and started telling us about how Elmo made his friends with a family and how soon he lost them. Oh, geez. It cut to Elmo sitting on a completely different train next to an otter-looking family consisting of an old couple and their young grandchild who wouldn't appear again. The woman was doing strange stretches, and Elmo, being Elmo, found that the most interesting thing in the world. Then it cut to Elmo and the rest of the Muppets on the Grand Canyon, all holding a rope tied to the train, which was dangling in the canyon itself. Below were 3 giant pillows. All but the couple were fighting tears. The man then poked his head out a window and told him, "You're not going to be able to hold us much longer. Let us go." Elmo looked sad. The woman then poked her head out and said, "We want to see what happens. For science." Suddenly the rope broke, and I was treated to a dramatic slow-motion shot of the train falling. Sad piano music was playing. After the train fell and subsequently exploded, Elmo fell to his knees and cried. The dream ended with a cut back to the Maya and Miguel man who was laughing uproariously. 2 kids who looked like Maya and Miguel themselves looked at him in shock and asked him to stop laughing. The man just continued laughing and said, "But this is hilarious. This is the funniest thing ever." The 2 children started laughing too. To this day, I wonder why I dreamed of something so morbid yet so funny.
Wow. Kudos to all the details, like I said in the beginning. But man, this was a roller coaster of a dream, like emotionally charged, took you on a ride, took you through weirdness, and then like the tragic hero is Elmo.
This is a very complete dream. I did a sketch of this one where Elmo is like kind of like looking down at the rope with the otters on the train. Yeah, if anybody wants to check it out, it's all on the like Instagram, Let's Dream Podcast, and our subreddit, Let's Dream Podcast. But yeah, that one was kind of weird to draw because it's like Elmo. Yeah.
The last sentence, to this day, I wonder why I dreamed of something so morbid yet so funny. Reminds me of like you know when you have like people talk to you, like it could be anyone, and all of a sudden they start talking about like their traumatic experiences and they start laughing.
Yeah, they try to laugh it off and it's kind of like, that was awkward, dude. Don't
laugh. Yeah, it's awkward. Yeah. So that's actually called an inappropriate affect.
Okay.
And they laugh because it's like they don't know how to process it, and it helps them regulate the emotions, when they're talking about it as well. And it, from a social, a normal social interaction, it is weird. It doesn't make any sense, like there's appropriate facial cues, appropriate, things. And this whole thing just reminds me of like the inappropriate affect.
Okay. Yeah, I could see that. That's cool. I didn't know that. Yeah. You taught me something new today.
Yeah.
Nice.
So the next story is from user Magnum Pete 1112. Had a dream where I was in a decaying building in a desolate wasteland in a standoff against a dragon made of rotting meat and protruding bones. The meat that formed from behind slithered out of the walls as if it had a mind of its own before coming together. And that's it.
Yeah, I often compare dreams to psychedelic experiences. It's just like a self-induced, free, natural psychedelic experience.
Mm-hmm.
This is a good example of that because I can see somebody seeing something like that on a psychedelic trip.
Yeah, so I'll go ahead and read the next one as well. The next story is from user Amane69Aku. The dream started when I woke up in my bed, and I looked beside me to see my wife was still sleeping. So I got up, washed my face, and got out of the bathroom, and I found my wife was waiting outside of the bathroom smiling. And she prepared breakfast, which made me think, how did she prepare breakfast when I was only 3 minutes in the bathroom? I decided to ignore that thought and go eat first, and while I was eating, my wife kept standing beside me, staring at me, and smiling. I asked her to sit down and eat as well, but she didn't respond. I finished breakfast and went to get dressed in order to go to work. I tried to check if this was a dream, so I pinched myself, rotating a ball. It seemed that everything was normal and felt real, so I thought maybe she was playing a prank or something. I went to the front door, kissed my wife before leaving, and when I opened, I found my wife outside, and she was so pale. And here, her eyes were red, and at that moment, I knew I was effed. And right after that, I heard a snap, and everything went black. I thought I became unconscious when I woke up. My right arm was broken, and the building I was living in collapsed. I got up walking slowly towards the nearest hospital, and as I started going, it started to rain heavily. When I got near the hospital, I saw someone standing, not moving. I tried to call to him, but I couldn't talk. Suddenly, something tall, black, with long arms grabbed me from behind and lifted me up, and the head of a man who was standing in front of me began to spin. I thought I was going to die, but it kept rotating for like 15 minutes. I wanted to die because it was so irritating, and I couldn't look at what kind of monster was hugging me. When I started getting bored, the head stopped and looked at me. I thought finally it stopped. Then the monster who was behind me moved its head in front of me. Its face was similar to Siren Head, but had a lot of teeth and a spiral and a light in the middle of its mouth. Then I thought, that was a very long neck. Then it started screeching. I then heard a snap, and everything became black. I then thought to myself, that was a painless way to die, and that dying was more peaceful than I thought. It would be then I woke up in the same location, and my arm was still broken. I got up and looked at myself in the puddle. I saw that I had a white hair and thought maybe that's how I would become the protagonist of the apocalypse. But first, I needed to treat my arm, and it was still raining, so maybe I am still in the first or second day of the apocalypse. I kept walking towards the hospital, and it looked more destroyed than before the blackout happened, but I looked at the main door and it was barricaded. I tried to knock, and people came to look at who was knocking. They removed the barricade and let me in. Then I looked at them, and they all had white hair, and I was pissed because that lowers my chance of being the protagonist. They treated my arm and introduced themselves. All of them had names that I didn't hear before. Lig, Ern, Poc, On, and their leader Cap with a Q. They asked me for my name, but I couldn't talk, so I grabbed a rock from the ground and wrote them Yoshida. It is not my real name, by the way. They looked confused, and they said they haven't seen a name more than 3 letters, which made me confused. And also happened that I may have gotten isekai'd. Then I wrote, how many days has it been since the start of the apocalypse? They told me it's been 2 weeks. I asked myself, how did my arm not get infected? Is it plot armor, perhaps, or maybe just pure luck? They left me to recover, and I heard them planning a way to get more food. I was alone trying to check if this was a dream or if this was reality, because the more I think about it, the more it doesn't make any sense why the creatures attack people to make their hair white. And how are things like these biologically possible? What do these white-haired mongrels barricade themselves from? I've been sleeping outside unconscious for 2 weeks, after all, and I am completely fine except my broken arm. That happened when I fell from the 5th floor. How am I even alive from a 20-floor building that collapsed on top? And I am the only one that stayed alive from it. Only a broken arm, and more importantly, the snapping before I got unconscious. Pac got into the room and told me to come and help them get supplies. So I went with them. They were going to the nearest supermarket. They were sneaking, and Cap, Lig, and On had guns. I kept following them to know what they were trying to avoid when we went to the supermarket. There were a lot of tall black monsters. Pock whispered to me not to let the eyes of the Vi see me. I nodded my head and wondered what will happen if I let them see us. Will they kill us and take the guns? Once those people are dead, they grabbed cans, food, and rice bags and said, "Let's go back." But when I looked behind me in what they call a Vi, one was looking at me and I got confused. And I think the Vi too sensed that we stared at each other. It was 3 seconds before it started screeching, making all the other Vi's in the supermarket chase us while we were running back towards the hospital. I heard a snap and blacked out again. When I got up, my arm was okay and everything was collapsed. I couldn't see anyone or anything, and nearby only rocks and sand, and it also seemed like the rain stopped a long time ago. I kept walking forward with nothing in my bag. I was able to find water and shelter, and while I kept walking, I thought, why did this happen to me? Yesterday I was playing video games, but going to work, everything was normal. Boring, but it was better than this. And I seemed to be the only one blacking out, and the only one to hear the snaps, and if everything blacks out in a week, shouldn't have died from thirst. And I realized that while I was away from any debris and rocks, I am kilometers away from a city I can barely see. And in front of me was a building made of steel. I heard gunshots. There was someone shouting at me, and they said to get in the inside the gate. I got in, and they gave me porridge, potatoes, and steak. The food was cold but edible. After I ate, they told me to sleep because I will help them out tomorrow. Before I went to sleep, I took a paper and a marker and wrote down how many days it's been since the beginning of the apocalypse. Took it from that 3 weeks have passed. And instead, they told me that 2 years have passed and they told me to go to sleep. Now, the day after they gave me a sniper... So the next day, they gave me a sniper rifle and told me to shoot the light source in the Vi's mouth. As I was going to my post, there's an old man who said, "Our death is near. The bringer of salvation won't come." Then a man told me to ignore the old man and to go to my post. I knew that the old man was right. It sounds cliche, after all. And when I got to my post, I put the rifle down. I let out a sigh because I knew the blackouts is going to happen soon. I tried shooting with a sniper rifle and it was surprisingly easy for me to shoot with it. And I kept shooting one after another and kept shooting. Days passed with the same routine. Wake up, breakfast, go to my post. Old man keeps talking about the same thing. Shoot the monsters until evening, eat dinner, then sleep, and repeat. And this happened for days, weeks, months, and I started to worry why there wasn't a blackout happening and why there wasn't snapping. Why is it the same day every day of hunting the Vi's or whatever they're called? Roughly 2 years and a half later, I was going to my post and then the old man was laughing. When I looked at him, he said that this is the end. He stabbed his throat with a knife and said, "Forgive me, father." A soldier pushed me and told me to go to my post. When I arrived at my post, I looked in the distance and saw an army of those Vi's running towards the base. I knew if I didn't black out, I won't stay alive. When I looked beside me, everyone was calm and kept shooting with their rifles. So I prayed that I black out once more or die a painless death. As soon as they started screeching, I heard a snap and blacked out. I was thankful, but then while I was blacked out, I heard a lot of snapping. It went for hours and I couldn't wake up. I thought I died. I begged for it to stop. Thinking the snapping continued, and I thought that maybe this is the afterlife as time passes. I began to forget who I am and what I did, where I was, and what was happening. And when the snapping stopped, I woke up not knowing who I am or what I was doing. I lost all of my memories. I was lying down on the ground, covered with broken bones, the skulls watching the cloudy skies. Then a man with hair and eyes too black that it looks like you're staring at a void. He was holding a great sword bigger than a macho man. He looked at me and said with a very deep and frightening voice, "Get up." I got up like I was told. Then when I looked behind him, there was 3 people and one of them was Pock. He put an iron collar around my neck and started walking for kilometers without stopping all day. All night we walked on as well, and I thought about the sword I wanted. It had a feeling that it was dragging me to it, and after a week, Pock said with a loud voice, "I don't want to go with you anymore. I don't want to eat, drink. I don't care if you are immortal. I will die from starvation." Like that, the black-haired man stopped and looked at Poc. He put the blade of the sword on the ground. Then, with a swift move, he chopped Poc's head. Then it turned into dust. He took Poc's collar from the ground, continued to walk forward for the next day. I realized that one of the two people who was with us disappeared, and at that realization, I heard a snap. Blacked out, and I woke up on a camel. For some reason, I still had my amnesia. There was someone leading the camel across the desert. Then he said in Arabic. Not my native tongue, but I learned a lot of languages in my life. Ah, so you are finally awake. That line felt familiar for me. We stopped at a tent and lit a campfire. He tried to talk to me. I didn't understand what he said, but he asked why I was unconscious in the middle of nowhere. And of course, I couldn't talk nor understand him, so I kept quiet. I kept looking around me and saw the camel, but he kept asking questions. And he kept saying, mute, and asked things like, where did you come from? How old are you? Then he started talking about the apocalypse. He said that 12 years have passed, and that the apocalypse is near the end. The bring of salvation have killed most of the Vais, and will become the king. Soon after that, he got sandwiches from his bag, and gave me one of those sandwiches, and it was warm, and the campfire was nice from the coldness of night. We kept going until the next day. We reached a city that looked like the Middle Ages Arabian kingdom. Everyone on the streets was looking at a throne in front of the castle in the middle of the city. And they were all saying, all hail the bringer of salvation. And there, in front of the throne, the black-haired man stood in front. In front of the throne, he grabbed his sword, and with both hands lifting the sword high above his head, he swung downwards, making everything explode. And we all died in the explosion. Everything moved in slow motion. All that I could feel at this moment was excitement. I heard a snap and I woke up. I was sweating a lot and the lights were out. This is the dream I had last month.
My God.
Jesus.
I mean, yeah, that's a whole nother level.
There is so much going on. But I implore you, listeners, other dreamers, if you submit a story this long, please use periods.
Yeah, break up your sentences, people. Paragraphs help too. I mean, it was a great story, nevertheless. It just makes it difficult to read. But that was great, man. That was insane recall. This guy's good.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of details in that. Lots of feelings, lots of weird feelings, what a weird universe.
You know what I really like about this story is how they were excited. They're like, oh, right, I might be the protagonist.
All you get is suffering.
The person I was interviewing yesterday for the podcast, they said something funny, which was like, oftentimes in their dreams, because they like the Lord of the Rings lore, they were saying how oftentimes they're like a side character that'll end up interacting with the main characters. And I actually really like that. It brings such a different kind of like flavor to the stories. I don't know.
I mean, I feel like that's how it should be. It's like when you play D&D and there's like you have a Lord of the Rings theme session. You know, you're going to meet the other characters and you're going to interact, but you're still going to have your own story, you know?
Yeah, and actually, there's like a theory somebody told me where it's like, in all of the like famous blockbuster movies, the main hero is kind of just like bland and uninteresting. Kind of like, was it like a good example is like Harry Potter is kind of like bland, you know, but like the characters around him all have a lot of character, which is supposed to make the viewer kind of like relate to the main character because they can imprint themselves onto the main character because there's not too much to them. I always thought the side characters were more interesting that way. Same with video games. A lot of video game characters, the main character is just so bland, you know?
I don't know, man. I sure relate to all the white men saving the day in blockbuster films. That's me, all right.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Just like the side characters are what make the stories really. I don't know. Like, really add.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It depends on the story, but I think having a generic main protagonist helps imprinting your own self into him a lot easier.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, it's easier to feel relatable, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, thank you so much for sharing that. Amen 69 Aku. That was cool. Very cool. But okay, off to the next story. This is from John Borger, 69. A lot of people like that number in the usernames. But
nice.
Okay, let's go into the dream. So the dream goes, I'll preface this by stating that it's not necessarily a traditionally scary dream. This was a dream from a while ago that forever changed the way I treated insects. I've always had a fear of bugs. Every year growing up until now, the house I've lived in has an ongoing problem with ants to varying degrees of seriousness. One of these years, like 2-ish years ago, I believe, we were all collectively sick of the little guys and used whatever we could to try to kill them in order to get them out of the house. In the bathroom, I used Febreze on a whole bunch of them. Most died or were all contorted or crippled. Really fucked up when you think about it. Anyway, I laid down for a nap, and off the dream we go. This dream, right from the start, was introduced to my brain in this real hazy, stomach-churning, off-putting way. I just had no clue what was going on. I don't remember what provoked it, but after a bit, I started hearing this, chattering, soft rumbling noise closing in from somewhere off in the distance. Not long after that, all these giant ants, the size of your average house cat, were all running towards me angrily. I'm running on as fast as I possibly can, but they just get closer and closer, walling me in every turn I make inside this absurd world consisting only of mishmash of all these different places I've been in real life. Music venues, school parking lots, churches, backyards. Of course, that only added to the looming sense of dread. That I know where I was, but I didn't because it was such a messed up world that really made no sense. The last thing that I remember before waking up was the ants surrounding me at every possible angle. I can only assume they got their revenge. I'll never kill an ant again.
Oh.
Nice.
I really like this one because we can see that it's emotionally substantial.
Yeah. That's great. That's they have kind of an annoying problem at home to the point where it's impacted their dreams.
Yeah, so. And this person has a fear of bugs. So even if you fear them and you kind of kill them with Febreze, no less, and you see a being or some kind of creature writhe in pain and just stop moving, it can be pretty traumatic in a way.
Yeah, God. People are so, human beings are really violent, and I don't even think it's always intentional.
No.
In this case, I don't even think it's intentional at all, but, I had a dream a while ago that I made a sketch of it. I posted it on the subreddit. It was basically these weird block-headed alien things that were, they were looking at me like an ant, and they started, just tearing my limbs off of my body, kind of like an ant might do, or like a kid might do to an ant. And then I remember after waking up, I'm like, oh man, that's kind of like what humans do to ants.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
Yeah.
It's
yeah. So I think this dream was a great way of processing this kind of moment.
Yeah. No, I like it. Thank you for sharing that with us.
All right, and that's all we have for today. Thank you guys for listening so much, and we're really enjoying the more detailed stories. They're great. They add a lot of flourish. Not that we don't enjoy the details. Sometimes it doesn't have to be too detailed. They just be nice, simple, and sweet. And regardless, thank you all. And if you want to check out any of the arts that Casey have done, you can check in the socials. He's got some things on YouTube going on now.
Oh yeah, storyboard. Made a funny storyboard.
Yeah. So if you want to catch Casey in action and ask him a couple questions, you can do so there. He usually does it when do you do it?
Oh yeah, I was going to start doing the live streaming of whenever I'm sketching things out. I usually do it really early in the morning though, before work. So it's 6 a.m.
What, Pacific? Eastern
Standard Time.
Yeah. So if you're up that early and you just so had to be on YouTube as well, check him out, ask him a couple questions. He'd love that. And we'll see you on the next episode.
Bye everyone.